Keep listening, keep learning, the Tom Daniels Show.
You're listening to the Tom Daniels Show, and I am your host, Tom Daniel. I created this list of major jazz artists who died at or before age 35 several years ago for a website called The Listverse that specialized in top 10 types of lists. The original creator and owner of the site was an online friend of mine, a New Zealand opera singer named Jamie Frater. Initially, I helped out Jamie with his new site as much as I could by submitting all kinds of lists that he graciously published and promoted. My lists were all harmless and fun, and involved topics such as music, television, famous redheads, and Jamie enjoyed publishing them. I once caught a famous YouTube personality using one of my Listverse lists word for word for a video presentation of his own. And when I left a comment telling him I was flattered that he stole from me, he blocked me. So therefore, since I created this list and my name is on it, I guess it's okay for me to steal from myself. I hate having to admit this, but I spent most of my high school and college years as a jazz snob. I openly disdained any music that wasn't authentic American jazz as both a performer and a listener, and I was pretty insufferable about it. Thankfully, as I got older, my taste broadened a lot, and I gave myself permission to like all kinds of music beyond jazz. But man, I still love me some great jazz. Now here are 10 of the fallen stars of jazz who died way too young. My main goal here is to get into the lives behind the names. The circumstances, the music, the impact. It's about legacy, the innovation cut short, and maybe the pressures they were under while honoring what they did achieve. It was a harsh reality check on the personal costs of these musicians. Although I already knew that many jazz musicians were tortured by poor health, I did not realize that tuberculosis was such a common complication of drug addiction, alcoholism, and malnutrition. And many of them died in the days before effective antibiotics. So sad. Well, anyway, this list is not in any particular order, so it's not really a top 10 list, but just a list of 10. Though starting off with Bunny Berrigan, trumpet, who died of a liver hemorrhage. Bunny Berrigan of Hilbert, Wisconsin, was an influential swing-era trumpeter, and he played with Hal Kemp, Paul Whiteman, Benny Goodman, and Tommy Dorsey. His version of the song I Can't Get Started was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 1975, and his tone was a blend of Louis Armstrong and cool swing. His severe alcoholism led to pneumonia and cirrhosis of the liver, yet he refused doctors' orders to rest and quit drinking. He just couldn't stop. He suffered a massive liver hemorrhage and died 2 days later in a hospital in New York City in 1942. Bunny Berrigan was 33. Next is James Bubber Miley, trumpet, who died of tuberculosis. Bubber Miley of Aiken, South Carolina, was a brilliant innovator and master of the mute, including the plunger mute, the derby mute, and the straight mute. And he popularized the signature wah-wah sound for the trumpet. He joined Duke Ellington and was highly instrumental in Ellington's early success at the Cotton Club in Harlem, until Duke was forced to fire him for his unreliability. Bubber battled alcoholism and died from tuberculosis in 1932 after a month in a New York hospital. He was only 29. Next, Chick Webb, drums, who died of spinal tuberculosis. Chick Webb of Baltimore, Maryland, was an innovative band leader at the inception of hot swing in the late 1930s. His band was the house band at the famous Savoy Ballroom in Harlem, and he always managed to beat other swing bands in the head-to-head battles they had at the Savoy. He discovered vocalist Ella Fitzgerald and gave her a career, and was a major influence on drummer Buddy Rich. Chick suffered from spinal tuberculosis since childhood, and it's heartbreaking to think about how much physical pain he must have endured while drumming night after night and creating such innovative music. Complications from his chronic disease eventually wore him down in 1939. Chick Webb was 34. Paul Chambers, bass, died of tuberculosis. Mr. P.C., Paul Chambers of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, transformed the bass from outlining simple triads to playing intricate melodies based on chord extensions and medieval modes, a lot like a horn player. He toured with several minor band leaders until he was finally discovered by Miles Davis, and it's his duet with pianist Bill Evans that opens the song So What?, the signature song of Miles Davis's album Kind of Blue. Additionally, the hard-driving C minor blues standard Mr. P.C. on John Coltrane's Giant Steps album was composed in honor of Paul Chambers. He suffered from alcoholism, heroin addiction, and tuberculosis, and died from complications after a short illness in 1969. It's staggering how these threads keep repeating. Paul Chambers was 33. Next, number 6. Fats Navarro, trumpet, died of tuberculosis. Theodore Fats Navarro of Key West, Florida, was one of the early pioneers of bebop and the main trumpet influence of Clifford Brown. He played with a few big bands such as Benny Goodman and Lionel Hampton, but he made his true fame from his brilliant small combo work with Charlie Mingus, Coleman Hawkins, and Charlie Parker. He was the main rival of Dizzy Gillespie on bebop trumpet, and they both played with the distinctive puffed-out cheeks. Yeah, vivid image. He was a heroin addict with tuberculosis, and he died from complications of both in a New York City hospital in 1950. Fats Navarro was only 26. You're listening to The Tom Daniels Show. We'll be right back.
What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show. What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show. What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show.
Welcome back to The Tom Daniels Show, and I absolutely love the jazz version of my theme song. Mary Mac is the world's most perfect band. I've been talking about a list I prepared of 10 jazz artists who died far too young, and I made it halfway through so far. So next we have Charlie Christian, guitar, died of tuberculosis. Charlie Christian of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, was highly influential in transferring the electric guitar from the staccato rhythm swing style of Freddie Green to the more modern bebop and cool jazz styles of a lead player. He was the one who paved the way for the guitar to be thought of as a solo instrument in addition to a rhythm instrument, and he basically played the guitar as if it were a saxophone. Although not a drug addict, Charlie Christian's hectic lifestyle took a severe toll on his body, already weakened by tuberculosis. The sheer grind of being a touring musician back then, the constant travel, the late nights, poor nutrition, it all really took a toll. One of my most beloved professors, jazz pianist Bob Richardson, once explained that the most realistic way to get a college degree in jazz would be to get locked on a crowded tour bus, drive all day, get off and play all night, and then get back on the bus and repeat the process for 4 years. Only then would you have a proper degree in jazz. Anyway, Charlie Christian died in 1942 after a long stay in a hospital on Staten Island, even though it initially appeared that he was getting better. Charlie Christian was only 25. And next, Clifford Brown, trumpet, died in a car crash. Clifford Brown of Wilmington, Delaware, was a major turning point in the direction of jazz trumpet and would undoubtedly have redefined the entire instrument had he lived longer. Brownie and drummer Max Roach were trailblazers in the hard bop style of the early 50s, building on bebop but adding more blues, more soul, stronger grooves. Almost all modern trumpeters owe much of their playing styles to the players who immediately followed Clifford Brown, such as Donald Byrd, Freddie Hubbard, and Wynton Marsalis. Brownie's lyricism, his technique, his tone was all so beautiful. Now, what makes his story even more tragic is that he was not caught up in heroin and was an avid practitioner of clean, healthy living while encouraging others to stay clean. And he helped break the heroin cycle that claimed so many young jazz musicians. Sadly, though, he was a passenger in a car that skidded out of control on a rainy turnpike in Pennsylvania in 1956, killing all occupants, including his 24-year-old pianist, Richie Powell, and his wife, Nancy. One of the most widely recognized jazz ballads is the hauntingly beautiful I Remember Clifford, written by Benny Golson. Clifford Brown was only 25. Next, Jaco Pastorius, bass, who died of a severe beating. Jaco Pastorius of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, was arguably the most influential bassist in jazz history. He played a rock fusion style and made the bass into a premier solo instrument. And he took the fretless bass into areas no one had ever dreamed of, the virtuosity, the harmonics. Jaco could lead a band from the bass. Now, the success of his first solo album in 1976 led to his union with keyboardist Joseph Zawinul, creating the legendary fusion band Weather Report. His death was incredibly disturbing. Jaco was severely beaten up by a club bouncer in Fort Lauderdale in 1987 and was left comatose on the street for several hours. His family had to disconnect his life support after 10 days in the hospital, and the bouncer pled guilty to manslaughter. Jaco Pastorius was 35. Next, Bix Beiderbecke, cornet, who died of alcohol withdrawal. Bix Beiderbecke of Davenport, Iowa, was able to take his Dixieland roots and infuse them with the classical influences of jazz-loving composers like Debussy and Ravel. The most notable difference between a cornet and a trumpet is that the cornet has a warmer, more mellow tone than the trumpet. Bix's tone was like a bell, and he had a more sophisticated sense of harmony than other players at the time. He definitely brought something different to early jazz, and he helped make jazz more accessible to curious yet still cautious white audiences. Bix suffered from terrible alcoholism, and in 1931 finally succumbed to its effects after years of poor health. Bix Beiderbecke was only 28. And finally, the last entry on my list, Charlie Parker, alto saxophone, died of pneumonia. Charlie Parker of Kansas City, Missouri, also known as Yardbird Parker, or more simply just the Bird, was one of the most influential jazz artists to have lived to any age. He pioneered the jazz style known as bebop and was a major influence and contemporary of Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis, Thelonious Monk. Bird helped redefine the process used by musicians to play improvised solos based on chord extensions and their relationships to similar melodies, while all the time playing with a dizzying velocity. Bird was hopelessly addicted to heroin and alcohol, and was in such terrible shape upon his death in 1955 that the coroner incorrectly guessed he was in his 50s. Charlie Parker was only 34. Bird lives. So, there you have a very somber and sobering list. Of course, by limiting myself to only 10 musicians, I left out several more who also died at or before 35, such as Lee Morgan on trumpet and Scott LaFaro on bass. Their lifestyle of jazz living made them so vulnerable and fragile, and it's profoundly sad. It makes you think about the pressures they've faced in the music industry and in society, and the personal demons riding their backs the whole way. What does that tell us about being an artist? There's no easy answer. I could never do it. I was too much of a chicken to try and make it big. Although I definitely played a lot of live music, I was never a performer who relied on gigs for survival. I wasn't anywhere near tough enough for that. Although they are all gone, their music is still very much alive. Go explore these artists, hear the brilliance for yourself, and let their recordings be a testament to their legacy of sadness and beauty. Thank you for listening. This has been the Tom Daniels Show. Keep listening, keep learning.
Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniels Show. Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniels Show. Take a break from your usual routine and tune in to the Tom Daniels Show. You'll discover the world of melodies and stories that you might not know. Keep listening, keep learning.